one aspect of the Boeing 777 crash at San Francisco Airport, the Asiana Airlines Flight 214 coming in from Seoul, Korea to San Francisco over the weekend, was about the pilot in charge. And I really don't want to turn this story about pilot Lee Gong-guk. I don't want to turn it into a let's attack the pilot type of story. Let's ruin his life more than it obviously already is going to be affected by this. Some reports are pointing out, hey, he had only 43 hours of flying time on the Boeing 777. He'd never landed by himself, but had flown to San Francisco previously. A little bit of a conflict on some of those reports. Most of those 43 hours were in a simulator. I don't actually want to focus on that because we don't know specifically what exactly in terms of pilot error, if anything, caused this crash. But the story that this brings up to me is one that if you've ever seen the documentary Flying Cheap, and I urge you to check it out, it's definitely on Netflix. Maybe it's online somewhere. I don't know. It really outlines how the number of hours for American airlines, and remember, this is Asiana. This is not an American airline. This was not a U.S. trained flight crew. But for me, the story is to think about how much less experience is now required versus 30 years ago to be the captain of some fairly sizable jets. And in some cases, only 10 or 15% of the hours that were once required are now required, Lewis. And to me, that is certainly a concern. And that's hopefully a story that we can take from this Asiana 214 crash and really analyze the American airlines and pilot experience there.
It's even scarier when you think about what airlines are doing to save costs and to cheap out when it comes to proper maintenance and repairs to airplanes as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've done quite a bit of reading into as before this because of a previous crash that took place also because of being too slow on arrival. I did quite a bit of research into what goes, into pilot requirements and maintenance requirements, and it's just kind of the norm that a lot of U.S. based airlines, including United, which I know specifically more about as I fly on United pretty frequently, or have at least over the last couple of years, the deferred maintenance, the planes, just like cars, have a maintenance schedule where after certain number of flying hours and or combination of time passed, certain maintenance has to be done. And it's completely normal and regular to defer what is not considered critical maintenance, meaning the plane won't fly without it to some extent, to just defer it and defer it indefinitely because any hours that the planes aren't flying, the airline's losing money. And this Asiana 214 incident does not appear to have been a mechanical failure. But again, is that something that is comforting to individuals? At the same time, though, Lewis, we can't forget that flying is still very, very safe.
Oh yeah, of course. And driving really isn't, even though statistically your chances of getting into an accident are low. If you consider how many are happening every day across the country, it's insane.
Absolutely. I was thinking when I read about this story, this kind of debate about whether it was pilot error or mechanical failure. If you learned that there was a crash that took place because of mechanical failure versus pilot error, which would make you less likely to want to fly on that airline again?
I would have to say mechanical error.
Really? Why is that?
Um, you have to assume if there are mechanical errors with a plane that it's been neglected and that other planes have been neglected. But it's pretty easy for a human to make a mistake or have some type of problem. Um, and in most cases, with most airlines, most pilots are pretty competent, and it's rarely pilot error that ends up um, in a situation like this.
But at the same time, Lewis, I think that's kind of the point. If there is pilot error, wouldn't that call into question what is the experience, training, and background of the pilots? I'm just trying to think if I really don't know the answer. I would actually defer to the audience on this. Is pilot error in a crash or mechanical failure in a crash, which would be most concerning to you for flying on that airline? And let me bring up another thing. Mechanical failure could be related to the airline's maintenance staff, but it also could be a problem with the manufacturer of the plane, and that may actually be more difficult to parse out, would it not?
Yeah, then that's a whole nother story. Who knows what's happening over there? But we do know that those companies usually charge top dollar, and if something goes wrong, it's usually not because of incompetence or Well, I would say that. It's usually not because of incompetence.
All right. Certainly, the Airbus A380 issues that have been going on with the batteries are certainly of concern. We will continue to cover